Hello. Hello. Can everybody please give Kelly a big round of applause for the great introduction? Oh, it is good to be back in Elkhart. Great to be back at Concord High School. Go Minutemen. I brought a couple of friends with me. Your Senator, Joe Donnelly, is here. Your Mayor, Tim Neese, is here. I wanted to congratulate everyone graduating tomorrow. I just met a couple of the valedictorians who seemed like outstanding young ladies. My older daughter, Malia, graduates next week. So if there are any parents here, I hope you can give me some pointers on how not to cry too much at the ceremony and embarrass her. That's what I'm going to do. If you've got a chair, sit down. Relax. I got some stuff to say here. So I'm not going to talk about the fact that, my daughter leaving me is just breaking my heart. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the economy. I don't know that if you've noticed, but this is an election year. And it's a more colorful election season than most. It's been a little unusual. And no, I can't do that. The Constitution prohibits it, but more importantly, Michelle prohibits it. Now, one of the reasons we're told this has been an unusual election year is because people are anxious and uncertain about the economy. And our politics are a natural place to channel that frustration. So I wanted to come to the heartland, to the Midwest, back to close to my hometown, to talk about that anxiety, that economic anxiety, and what I think it means. And what I've got to say really boils down to 2 points, although I'm going to take a long time making these 2 points. Number one, America's economy is not just better than it was 8 years ago. It is the strongest, most durable economy in the world. That's point number one. Point number two, we can make it even stronger and expand opportunity for even more people. But to do that, we have to be honest about what our real challenges are, and we've got to make some smart decisions going forward. Now, Elkhart is a good place to have this conversation because some of you remember this was the first city I visited as president. I'd been in office just 3 weeks when I came here. We were just a few months into what turned out to be the worst economic crisis of our lifetimes. Our businesses were losing 800,000 jobs a month. Our auto industry was about to go under. Our families were losing their savings and their health insurance, and as Kelly pointed out, they were in danger of losing their homes. And Elkhart was hit harder than most. Unemployment here would peak at 19.6%. That means nearly 1 in 5 people here were out of work. And I told you then that I was going to have your back. And we were going to work hard to bring this economy back. So what's happened since then? Unemployment in Elkhart has fallen to around 4%. At the peak of the crisis, nearly 1 in 10 homeowners in the state of Indiana were either behind on their mortgages or in foreclosure. Today, it's 1 in 30. Back then, only 75% of your kids graduated from high school. Tomorrow, 90% of them will. The auto industry just had its best year ever, and the RV capital of the world is doing its part. The industry is set to ship nearly 400,000 RVs this year, which will be an all-time record. So that's progress. And it's thanks to you, to the hard work you put in and the sacrifices you made for your families and the way that you looked out for each other. But we also wouldn't have come this far, Elkhart would not have come this far, if we hadn't made a series of smart decisions, my administration, a cooperative Congress, decisions we made together early on in my administration. We decided to help the auto industry, to restructure, and we helped families refinance their homes. We decided to invest in job training so that folks who lost their jobs could retool. We decided to invest in things like high-tech manufacturing and clean energy and infrastructure so that entrepreneurs wouldn't just bring back the jobs that we had lost, but create new and better jobs. And folks who had lost work from the construction industry because the housing market had collapsed could go back to work rebuilding America. And we can see the results, not just here in Elkhart, but across the nation. By almost every economic measure, America's better off than when I came here at the beginning of my presidency. That's the truth. That's true. It's true. It's true. Over the past 6 years, our businesses have created more than 14 million new jobs. That's the longest stretch of consecutive private sector job growth in our history. We've seen the first sustained manufacturing growth since the 1990s. We cut unemployment in half, years before a lot of economists thought we could. We cut the oil that we buy from foreign countries by more than half, doubled the clean energy that we produce. For the first time ever, more than 90% of the country has health insurance. So, in fact, a poll that was out just last week says that 2 out of 3 Americans think their own family's financial situation is in pretty good shape. But we know a lot of people are still feeling stressed about their economic future. The pundits, they say one of the reasons the Republican Party has picked the candidate that it has, no booing, you know, we're voting, we're not booing. But, you know, if you watch the talking heads on TV, they'll say the reason that folks are angry is because nobody's paid enough attention to the plight of working Americans in communities like these. That's what they say. Now, look, I'm the first to admit my presidency hasn't fixed everything. We've had setbacks. We've had false starts. We've frankly been stuck with a Congress recently that's opposed pretty much everything that we've tried to do. But I also know that I've spent every single day of my presidency focused on what I can do to grow the middle class and increase jobs and boost wages and make sure every kid in America gets the same kind of opportunities Michelle and I did. I know that. I know that communities like Elkhart haven't been forgotten in my White House. And the results prove that our focus has paid off. Elkhart proves it. Now, where we haven't finished the job, where folks have good reason to feel anxious, is addressing some of the longer-term trends in the economy that started long before I was elected that make working families feel less secure. These are trends that have been happening for decades now, and that we've got to do more to reverse. Let me be clear about what those are. Despite the drop in unemployment, wages are still growing too slowly, and that makes it harder to pay for college or save for retirement. Inequality is still too high. The gap between rich and poor is bigger now than it's been just about any time since the 1920s. The rise of global competition and automation of more and more jobs, the race of technology, all these trends have left many workers behind, and they've let a few at the top collect extraordinary wealth and influence like never before. And that kind of changes our politics. So all these trends make it easy for people to feel that somehow the system is rigged, and that the American dream is increasingly hard to reach for ordinary folks. And there are plenty of politicians that are preying on that frustration for headlines and for votes. Now, I am a politician for another 6 months or so. But I'm not running again. Yes. Besides, besides, while I may have won the state of Indiana just barely in 2008, I know I lost the vote in Elkhart. I definitely got whooped here in 2012. I know I don't poll all that well in this county. So I'm not here looking for votes. I am here because I care deeply as a citizen about making sure we sustain and build on all the work that communities like yours have done to bring America back over these last 7.5 years. And I came here precisely because this county votes Republican. That's one of the reasons I came here. Because if the economy is really what's driving this election, then it's going to be voters like you that have to decide between two very different visions of what's going to help strengthen our middle class. You're going to have to make that decision. So let me be as straight as I can be about the choice of economic policies that you are going to face. And I'm going to start with the story that not every Republican, but most Republican candidates up and down the ticket are telling. And it goes something like this. And I think this is pretty fair, and if you don't, then you can look it up. So their basic story is America's working class, America's middle class, families like yours, have been victimized by a big, bloated federal government run by a bunch of left-wing elitists like me. And the government's taking your hard-earned tax dollars, and it's giving them to freeloaders and welfare cheats, and we're strangling business with endless regulations, and this federal government is letting immigrants and foreigners steal whatever jobs Obamacare hasn't killed yet. No, look, I'm being serious here. I mean, that's the story that's been told. And I haven't, turned on Fox News or listened to conservative talk radio yet today, but I've turned them on enough over these past 7.5 years to know I'm not exaggerating in terms of their story. That's the story they tell. You can hear it from just about every member of Congress on the other side of the aisle. And instead of telling you what they're for, they've defined their economic agenda by what they're against, and that's mainly being against me. And their basic message is anti-government, anti-immigrant, anti-trade, and let's face it, it's anti-change. And look, a lot of people believe it. And if what they were saying were true, I suppose it would make sense to run on a platform of just rolling back everything we've done over these past 7.5 years, and happy days would be here again. If what they were saying was true, then just being against whatever it is that we've done might make sense. But what they're saying isn't true. And if we're going to fix what's really wrong with the economy, we've got to understand that. So let me just do some quick myth busting. And I'm going to start with the biggest myth, which is that the federal government keeps growing and growing and growing and wasting your money and giving your tax dollars to people who don't deserve it. Now, here's the truth. You can look it up. These journalists here, they can do some fact checking. As a share of the economy, we spend less on domestic priorities outside of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We spend less than we did when Ronald Reagan was president. When President Reagan or George W. Bush held this job, our deficits got bigger. When Bill Clinton and I have held this job, deficits have gotten smaller. Our deficits have not grown these past 7.5 years. We've actually cut the deficit by almost 75%. Moreover, there are fewer families on welfare than in the 1990s. Funding has been frozen for 2 decades. So there's not a whole bunch of giveaways going on right now. Aside from our obligation to care for the elderly and Americans with disabilities, the vast majority of people who get help from the federal government are families of all backgrounds who are working, striving to get back on their feet, striving to get back into the middle class, and sometimes, yes, their kids need temporary help from food stamps when mom and dad are between jobs. But look, these kids didn't cause the financial crisis. These kids aren't spending us into bankruptcy. They're not what's holding back the middle class. And by the way, neither is Obamacare. Let's look at the numbers. Again, I'm just giving facts here. I will have some opinions later, but right now I'm just giving facts. I signed the Affordable Care Act into law over 6 years ago. Since then, our businesses have created jobs every single month. We did this while covering 20 million Americans who didn't have health insurance, ending discrimination against pre-existing conditions for everybody, including those who had health insurance, dramatically slowing the rate at which healthcare costs were going up. In the decade before Obamacare, employer-based premiums grew by an average of 8% a year. That meant you were paying that much more every year for health insurance.